Welcome to RebelsCast. My name is Jonathan, and joining me, as always, is Nicki.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. So today is all about Star Wars for me.
Cool stuff. Okay, well, we're just going to jump right in. We're going to talk about, it's kind of appropriate that we talk about these, it's really the first two episodes proper. I mean, Wikipedia says Siege of Lothal is episodes 1 and 2, but then, you know, I say we just call this episode 1 and 2.
I agree, and my DVR says that these are the first two episodes.
All right, cool. So the Lost Commanders and
Relics of the Old Republic.
Right. Okay, so you start off, of course, and of course we're getting, you know, a bit more Ahsoka than I expected, but, you know, I mean, she's in, you know, several episodes, but I guess she doesn't really play a big part in general.
Right. That's fine with me. I mean, I think I like this Ahsoka much more than I liked the Clone Wars Ahsoka.
Yeah. Definitely starting out.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so apparently we have these droids, and what kind of they're called tactical droids, and I guess those are the ones that were like generals of the ships, right?
I believe so, and it's been a while since I watched Clone Wars, but they were like the ones who came up with strategy and were able to locate and come up with battle plans and stuff.
Right.
Truly living up to their name as tactical.
Right. So it's scanning for some kind of signal of some kind.
Some kind of probably some low res signal from, that's trying to stay under most radar.
Right. So it starts, and of course they're looking for this great commander. Kind of reminds me a little bit of, they're looking for a great warrior.
Yeah.
Like an empire.
Exactly.
No,
so, I got that too. I thought that was a great thing.
Yeah, so he starts chiming 7567, 7567.
Which, if you know the Clone Wars, as soon as I heard that number, I was very excited.
Yes. And of course, Ahsoka had previously said, trust them, trust him, trust him. I think because she said that in a way, she said it deviously, but she was really just being serious. She's like, you might not initially trust them, because he's a clone, but you really need to trust him because
he's one of the good ones.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was more for Kanan because naturally the clones and the Jedi, there's some wariness based on, what happened in Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
As well there should be.
Right. So they dropped the name Ahsoka, and of course they tried to, shoot them, and just a weapons malfunction.
Of course. It's always a weapons malfunction. How are you?
Yeah. So, they've obviously aged, and we know that since clones age twice as fast, they're,
Yeah, they're
50s.
The gray-haired old gentlemen.
Yeah, they're like
Old Republic.
Yeah, they're like late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah. But they look good.
Yeah.
One's a little nuts, but Rex looks good. This was the episode I was most excited about seeing. I mean, yeah, it was great to see Vader, but in Siege of Lothal, but my nephew, who's 10 now, since I started watching the Clone Wars when he was about 3 and a half, his favorite character is Rex. So when he was about 6 and 7, I showed him, the prequels, and he always worried about what happened to Rex because you don't see him in the films and you don't know what happens. And once he saw all the clones go bad, he worried that Rex had gone bad. So he's 10 and he still loves Rex. Rex is still his favorite character. He's seen all the Clone Wars because I raised him right. And
yes,
I was able to call him and tell him, I said, Nick, I know what happened to Rex. And he said, what? And I said, he's okay. He's still alive. He did not go bad. He did not hurt the Jedi. He was not a part of Order 66. And so to be able to say that and to be able to tell him that, and Rex is one of my favorite characters too, but Nicholas was just so relieved that his hero, had not turned. And then he had all the questions like, how did that happen? And blah, 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 because he's all about that. He's 10. He's all about the why. But So he's watched the episode now and he's really happy.
Oh, I see.
So, and I always wondered about what happened with some of the clones. So it's cool that I'm just so relieved that at least Rex didn't go all psycho with Order 66.
So he talks about how they fought from the Battle of Christophsis to the Siege of Mandalore, and the Battle of Christophsis, of course, was let's see, took planet on Christophsis only 7 weeks into the Clone Wars. So this was yeah, I mean this was right near the beginning of the series, or maybe even the movie. I don't know.
Yeah, it was between episodes 2 and 3 of the films. It was between Attack, because we saw the army finally come together in Attack of the Clones, the Battle of Geonosis and all that. So the Clone Wars officially started kind of in that in between, the 3 years in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and then continued after briefly, until, the Jedi were hunted down and the Empire took officially, had the stronghold.
Right.
That's the classic history of the Clone Wars. Who knows what's going, if they've changed it.
Right. So I guess my point is just they fought for a while. We remember the Siege of Mandalore and everything went down during that. I think it's cool because it's really special if you've watched the Clone Wars that you get these kind of callbacks. If you haven't watched the Clone Wars, you don't really fully get it.
Right. I mean, those of us who obsessively watched the Clone Wars, it was really cool to hear, like, oh, I remember the Siege of Mandalore, or I remember hearing them talk about that, and seeing and hearing and things being referred to. And I was really happy that Rebels didn't just kind of ignore its history. It's like, no, the Clone Wars came before you, and you're respecting that, and I dig that. I think it's really respectful, and I think it's, it's what fans want. We don't want standalone for the most part. We don't want you to forget where you've been.
Yeah, and before we move on with that, I do want to talk a little bit about the ATTE, the tank, that's been, they got a little, little catwalk. They have
a little arc transport.
Yeah, and then they have like a then it has like this steam power or something. It kind of reminds me of Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh my God, that's in my notes.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you what you thought of that because of Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, definitely very cool.
Yeah, it's very cobbled together. It's like a houseboat almost now,
right,
but on land. So yeah, I thought it was cool to see the old ARC gear, and yeah, the Howl's Moving Castle reference definitely was very clear.
Right. So we do get when they're going after the Jupa, I think that's a Jaws reference.
Possibly.
It's got that long catwalk that goes out, and I think we might have even gotten a little Jaws music, but I'm not sure.
I kind of think that there was maybe a hint of that, but you never know. Might have been a nice little tribute to John Williams.
Right. So of course, as you were saying about Order 66, and it kind of goes back to those Lost Missions episodes, about the chips.
Yeah.
The fact that when they moved the chip, and the first clone removed the chip, they died, right?
Yes.
But then I guess they perfected the process, and these 3 clones, and these 3, and it's also interesting to note that, it's also worthy to note that, these are officers, ones that are more likely to think on their own, more likely to, they were bred to be officers, and
right. They give orders. They're not cannon fodder. They are not just the soldiers. These are the guys who commanded the troops, and they had to think with a more military mind. So they were brought up in their training to be this, and it would make sense that these would be the guys who'd figure out how to do it safely, how to remove that chip.
And in general, just how to think more deeply like a human, like a real person versus a trooper, which is just probably wouldn't even think twice about, what's going on here?
Right. They weren't just the ones following commands. They actually were like questioning. They would question commands. And that's a big difference between them and the rest of the clones, who were just basically just on the ground soldiers. These were the guys who probably knew more than any of the other clones and had access to more information, and maybe somehow had found out about this chip and wanted, when they retired, wanted to live a better life or a new life, or wanted to get out of the military. So we don't know why they removed their chips, but we do know that, it kind of saves at least these three from the wrath of all of us who are so upset over Order 66.
Right. And of course, Rex says we all have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's
true. Well, there is a theory that Commander Cody also, while maybe the chip activated, he was able to kind of ignore it or override it in Revenge of the Sith, because when he shows up on Utapau and he's like, the clones have turned on Obi-Wan, he misses when he fires at Obi-Wan. Commander Cody does not miss. Yeah. So there is a theory floating around that maybe some of the clones were able to ignore the programming, or it didn't affect them as much because maybe, their own will had taken over, and that Commander Cody had not actually been a part of Order 66 either, that he deliberately missed because of his respect for General Kenobi and the Jedi. So just a theory that I read, and I would like it to be true.
Interesting.
I have to ask George.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know about that, Nikki. Anyway. Oh, by the way, the Chicago did approve the Lucas Museum, so that's cool.
I guess we're planning a trip to Chicago at some point.
Yep. Who's driving?
Yep.
Oh, of course. Anyway, to the episode, and of course Rex is like I'm not all, I'm not really up much for fighting.
Yeah.
That's that was a war I fought in. I'm not really interested in getting involved into another one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the start of his arc, and his arc is different by the end of this 2-part arc,
Exactly. He really doesn't want to get involved. I think after what happened, probably finding out and experiencing what happened with Order 66 and the clones turning on the Jedi, he seemed very wary of the fact that Kanan was a Jedi. Like, oh God, they're coming for revenge. Was what he said, or what Gregor said. But he's done. I mean, he was one of the greatest commanders in the Republic. I mean, he was the best. And I think he did so much fighting that he's, pretty much done. But he's also bred to be a fighter, and I think that instinct is still in him.
Right. They know that, he fought with one of the greatest Jedi.
Yeah. Every time he mentions it a couple times, and Ahsoka, about his commander, and Ahsoka had mentioned, her master, and I just have this, I look forward to the day they find out what happened to Anakin, because it's like the reaction. I really want to see how they feel about Anakin becoming Darth Vader.
Right. So of course the whole crux of this mission is to get some secret location of the Outer Rim, of perhaps some rebels that, right? Just perhaps some rebels that haven't been discovered by the Empire.
Right, and some, that maybe the clones knew about, but not so much, the leaders of what became the Empire, who were in the Republic. So I think the clones probably have lots of secrets that they didn't share, even with their Jedi commanders.
Right. I think Kanan is so just has a distaste for these clones, is that he saw them turn on the Jedi, he saw them kill his master.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of tough. I mean, wouldn't you be furious, have
Yeah.
something against the clone?
And I think that Rex understands that, because he seems very yeah, I know what happened and it was wrong. I had nothing to do with it, but I understand. I mean, that just seems to be his attitude. He might not say it, but he doesn't blame Kanan for not trusting them. And I think there's a little distrust there because you don't know they don't really know what Kanan's motivations are. And yeah, the clones did turn on the Jedi, and almost eliminated them from the universe. But I think that Rex is the smartest clone we've ever met, and I think he just knows it'll take time, and it's okay if this Jedi doesn't trust him, because he kind of sees where he's coming from. And I think once, Kanan finds out, that Anakin Skywalker took out the younglings, it'll be a whole new ball game between him and Vader.
Agreed. Excuse me. So another thing is that Gregor is really worried that the Empire will find out.
Yeah, and Wolf is really paranoid. I mean, Gregor is kind of nuts.
Oh yeah, it's Wolf that contacts.
Oh, okay, yeah, because they're both kind of Gregor is just he's been out there too long.
Yeah.
He's the one jumping around gleefully wanting to sacrifice Zeb as bait. But yeah, Wolf, who was a captain, and I think he was in the Clone Wars animated series. I think I have a action figure of him. He's he doesn't know who he can trust, so why not trust, the most, let's see, who's the most powerful? Let's trust the Empire.
Right.
Let's not get on the bad side. They've kind of left us alone. And it's well, dude, they left you alone because they didn't know where you were.
Right.
And I think he's trying to trade their safety for the Jedi and for the Rebels. And I really loved how contrite he was.
Right.
But yeah, I know it's an animated series, but you really feel for these guys. I understood why he did it. I didn't like it, but I understood why. But why he hadn't told Rex about the messages from Ahsoka, that still sits with me the wrong way.
Right. And of course, Wolf is the one that contacts the Empire because he thinks, and we've seen this in other kinds of TV shows, movies, and I think even in probably a Clone Wars or something that, oh yeah, we're gonna say the Empire, it's or the Empire or some other military. Oh yeah, we found these people and you promised not to destroy us, but then anyway they still, we know we knew they were just gonna wipe them all out anyway. They don't really care.
Don't trust the Empire.
Yeah.
That is the thing you take away from any encounters. You never trust the Empire because they will turn on you. They will use your information and promise you things. Like Darth Vader, just like Lando Calrissian said, he's this deal gets worse by the minute, all the time, because he kept changing the terms of the deal, and that's what the Empire does. They're manipulative.
Right.
And they know nobody's going to stand up to them. And Vader knows that nobody's going to stand up to him. So, and Callus knows that people aren't going to stand up to him except for the rebels.
Right. Okay, of course, we're getting a little bit into the next episode, but
Oh, yeah.
but we do know about this probe, and we don't really have time to talk about the Juba.
No.
Yeah,
It was disturbing looking.
Yes, it was.
It reminded me of an old Tom Baker Doctor Who episode.
I see.
There was a creature kind of like that, and it was I do not want to eat that.
No. So this probe, of course, is a callback to Empire Strikes Back, and like they said, like Han said, I didn't hit it very hard, and it looks like it hit the probe droid, sort of died, or like it powered down or it died, but then it a second later, it explodes. It didn't explode on contact. It was a little delay. So we got to assume that, that's what they do, because otherwise you could hack into the droid.
Exactly. I was thinking that too. Is it probably has a self-destruct if it's hit, or if a damage is sent, you got to just destroy it. But the information's already been transmitted.
Right.
A la Empire Strikes Back.
Yes. So the next episode is called Relics of the Old Republic, like we said.
Relics referring to the clones.
And the ATT.
And the ATT.
So Callus doesn't, he doesn't really care about, Wolf says, you gotta bring someone better than those stormtroopers, but Callus is they serve the Empire well, and I have a great many of them. I mean, he's basically just like, just treating them like droids. He just doesn't really see them as anything but,
No, cannon fodder. They're cannon fodder. They're there to die.
Yep.
Basically. And I did love how seeing the kind of bitterness over, the stormtroopers. Like you're, bringing in your stormtroopers. Like we were the troopers. We were the real troopers. Now you have these losers who can't even aim right and can't even aim and hit anything.
Right. Another thing is that, he trusted him with my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that fighting ever got to Lothal. He talks about, and of course, Callus he wants to take deal with them personally,
Oh yeah, he's got a grudge against this particular group of rebels, and we know why. They've defied him and upstaged him at every turn, and he can't quite do anything about it. But he's determined.
Right.
I love that about that man.
Sideburns.
Yeah. I was like, sometimes I root for him, and I'm like, why am I rooting for him?
He's a villain you love to hate.
Yeah.
Or hate to love. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I hate to love him and I love to hate him because he's kind of delicious. And sometimes the way he's animated, his eyes and his mouth, and like it's like, ooh, it's like if you had a mustache, you'd be twirling it. And the voice acting is just incredible for that character. David Owelia. I can't say his last name. Martin Luther King.
Yes.
From Selma.
Yes, great performance in that.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So yeah, Callus, I love when Callus shows up, but he's really just single focused right now. I'm going to get these guys. That's it.
Right.
And I don't care what it takes.
Right. And this, of course, we get another Empire Strikes Back callback. We get the binoculars looking at 3 AT-ATs.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm guessing you smiled.
I'm smiling right now even thinking about it.
Yeah.
This episode was very much an homage to The Empire Strikes Back. We're on a stark environment. This time it's desert, and before on Hoth it was snow. But it's a very similar environment in that way. We have the three. We have these small fighters, or this one fighter going up against it. So and he just had this whole General Veers thing going on when he was, commanding the AT-AT, and with, it was like, oh, I think that was one of my notes. Prepare for ground assault, and I was like, oh my god. And Callus just standing and commanding was like, oh, you're so General Veers right now.
Right.
I'm kind of digging it. And I love seeing the classic AT-AT driver uniforms.
Yes.
Like, I was like, oh, I love that uniform. And I know many guys who make that uniform.
Right, and we get the Hoth theme mixed in, and then we get the Imperial March mixed in. So.
Oh yeah, which is something that we got in Empire after when Vader entered the base enter the Hoth base. So I was just loving that.
And of course, we learn about this fact that they're weak in the neck. So, and I guess in Empire Strikes Back, they mention the tow cables, but
they don't go for the neck.
And that's what they use, but they don't go for the neck. So I thought that was, I don't know, interesting, odd, whatever.
Something that just never got down the chain of command, or it's something that the Empire fixed.
Or it's just something that the filmmakers didn't think about.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me change that back. Maybe it's something they tried to, retcon or something in this episode. I don't know.
It's possible, but yeah, it never came up in Empire. They went for the tow cable, and they went for, Luke throwing a grenade into the actual body of the AT-AT. So.
Or that Family Guy episode.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So of course Kanan, another thing about they use the Force, and in this episode we get the, because they've established a Rebels Force theme. Yeah. How it's very different from the OT's Force theme. And we do get a little of the OT Force theme.
Yeah, a little bit. It's enough so you can compare them. It's enough so you can connect them. And so
Right.
you could say, okay, yeah, that's a Force theme.
Right.
But I do like that it's different because I believe that both the Clone Wars and Rebels deserve to have their own thing. They deserve to be recognized for what they are, as opposed to just, extra stories for the Star Wars universe. Because this stuff's now canon.
Yep.
So, yeah, and I loved, Kanan finally helping out a little bit and agreeing to help by using the Force. I thought it was a very cool way to use the Force that we hadn't really seen a lot of, which was
Right.
trying to see through blinders, basically. And we kind of get a little of that with Obi-Wan training Luke on the Falcon in A New Hope, where he puts the blinders down and you can't see and you have to kind of feel.
Yeah, and then what made me, and then I just thought of at the end of New Hope with Trust Me, Luke,
Yeah.
which is a direct, of course, a direct, which makes that film so great is that it's a direct callback. There's a direct setup or whatever you
Right.
say, In
It
fact,
was,
he wasn't
it
using his
wasn't
targeting,
right.
wasn't using his targeting computer.
I actually, that's in my notes too, is like Luke turning off his targeting computer in A New Hope. Ezra takes off his helmet and uses the Force to guide him. That's
Right.
my note. And you all know how I feel about Rex, but did anybody
Oh yes,
else?
I do know how you
The
feel about
helmet.
Rex. I know how your nephew feels about Rex.
Yes, but the helmet, when Ezra puts on Rex's bucket, I just got the chills.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I mean, that was like, how nerdy am I? I'm excited to see a helmet.
Right. Oh yeah, I thought it
But
was also interesting, and I forget which episode, but I think it was the first that they showed a Phase One Clone Wars helmet, right,
yeah,
in the
they did.
background. So they
Yeah,
kind of collected them as
yeah.
memories. So,
So I was like kind of hoping Rex would give his helmet to Ezra, but then I was like, no, Rex gets to keep that.
yeah,
That's seen
yeah.
bad. That's seen a lot. So
Yeah, I mean, this is what I mean. Rex says we were born to do this. They were
yeah.
bred to do this.
Right.
You
And I
know.
think that's what kind of brings him out of his retirement, is like he's probably been waiting for this opportunity. He's like, yeah, I said I was retired, but I really want to fight again.
Yeah,
Because
and of
they
course,
all enjoyed it so much. All three of the clones, they were just like, yeah,
and
this
Gregor
is
was
what.
totally gung ho about it.
Oh, totally. I mean, I thought he was gonna just go and like go completely insane and pull a bad lieutenant and just start shooting. But they all did their job. They listened to their commander and they worked together. And I like that Rex had so much trust in Kanan. He's like, I still respect the Jedi, I still trust the Jedi, and I'm gonna give you a lot. I'm gonna trust you, and I hope you trust me, and let's do this kind of moment. I really dug that.
Yeah. Another thing is that um, the whole sandstorm and the
Hmm.
AT-ATs are kind of, and I thought it's interesting that Kanan, like, pretty much intentionally, he's like, oh yeah, we're surrounded now. And they're like, what? What do you, I mean, you'd be surprised too. You did exactly you did the complete opposite of what you would think you would do.
Right. He's like, oh, by the way, we're surrounded. I was like, I don't know if he expected that. He was a little surprised by that too. But what did Callus call it? The pincher maneuver. It's like just get him in. It's totally surround where he thinks they are, and he was right
And then
because they didn't know where they were.
right, and of course they go for this. After the storm kind of clears, they go for this thing where the tank just starts ramming the legs, and it's just complete underdog. You have this
Yeah.
giant walker, and you just start raising up and just like just kind of pushing the legs up, and
Yeah, it was really cool. It was like trying to push over, the Trojan horse almost. It was like, just keep pushing. We're just gonna go at this old school. We can't fight it. We can't blast it, but what we could do is we could trip it. We can make it fall over, and it worked. And just like, that's how smart these clones are.
right. I mean, we see that in the first episode the I'm blanking. Oh, not the Phantom, the Ghost
Ghost.
was still damaged,
Yeah.
and they went in the Phantom, and and of course they fixed the Phantom. Miss Sabine, the one, Sabine and Chopper and Hera are all about the tech stuff and
Right.
repairing the stuff. And we've seen this before in movies and television. I mean, of course, it was in right out of New Hope. I know what I'm doing, Chewie.
Yeah.
Just going at it. Just
Yeah.
leaving. And of
But
course, oftentimes it's the younger person that tells the older person, the fact that we should go back.
right. It's the whole out of the mouths of babes. It's like sometimes those with the least experience often have the best concept of what's really right and wrong.
Right.
And Ezra did.
Right. Another thing is that, so they go back and they help him out, and of course they do the thing where they, take the lightsaber and just whip it around.
They're doing their deflecting thing.
Right.
Deflecting the blaster bolts. Yeah, I was really like when they started to leave. I was like, you can't leave them. You just gave them back to us. You can't kill off these soldiers now. And I was really glad that they went back because I was really kind of pissed. I was like, what, dude? These guys just help save your life. You can't just leave.
Right.
But Ezra knew what the right thing to do was, and he also didn't have the history, so he didn't have the resentment that Kanan still bears for the clone troopers. So I thought it was just, the whole sequence was just so well done. I loved how they got into the AT-AT and took it over because it reminded me of Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Of Chewie, and the Ewoks commandeering the AT-ST on Endor. So I thought I really loved all of the homages they paid. Any more, and it probably would have been too much. Everybody was like, okay, that's enough. We get it. But this was, I think it had the right amount without going overboard.
Okay, just to wrap this thing up, we have the Inquisitor. We have a new Inquisitor that came instead of. I'm not surprised that Vader didn't come because we want to use him sparingly.
Yeah.
Probably won't see him maybe till like the mid-season or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing.
I think we're getting like 22 episodes actually, or something like that.
Oh, a full complement. Yeah. Half-hour animated shows usually 22 is their limit, but because of the cost and expense of animating and all the music and stuff. But I think we're going to see Vader closer to the end, middle of the end of the season, because like you said, you want to use him sparingly. You don't want to rely on Vader to be your big bad because he has other things to do, and we get a lot of him in the original trilogy, and you don't want to overload. But I do want some more of him.
Right. All right. So what do you think of this new Inquisitor? I mean, I'm sure we'll have so much more to talk about him later.
Oh, I know. Once we get to know him a little bit more, but dude, I was just like, he scares me. That I don't know how they got the idea for his physical figure, but I was like, oh my God, I can't tell what you are. Are you a robot? Are you made of stone? Are you, it was like a Doctor Who villain. And I liked that. And I'm intrigued by this new guy. And he's like a machine almost, in that he's single focused. He's like, yep, you haven't done your job. I'm going to do it. Yep. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to get him. That's it. I don't have any other thing to do.
And Callus has been left behind. He probably won't be coming back, I don't think. I mean, he might be, you know what I mean? I mean, maybe he'll be like, hey, and I'm not sure what the fate of Callus will be, but the Inquisitor
I don't know. He ditched his guys and took off on a speeder bike and just was like it was like this maniacal smile on his face. I was like, dude, you just left your AT-AT drivers.
Right.
That poor guy has to like run after you on this barren planet. I was like, that is such a dick move, but it's so callous in both senses of the word.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Callus will be back. I don't see this being the end of him. I think if they were going to get rid of him, it would have been a more grand send-off. But he's not going to like this new Inquisitor. Not that he liked the old one as much as I did. But this guy is freaking me out. It's just like, I I want to stay far away from this guy.
Agreed. Okay, so something else. So I guess we can just go ahead and then, of course, Rex comes back, and I assume the other two clones as well.
Yeah, we don't see them on the ship, but I can't imagine them staying. I mean, their transport is kind of destroyed. But they weren't the great military minds of their time. The Wolf, I assume, had a little bit, as a captain. He was pretty smart. Gregor is just lost. You forget it. He needs to be in a rubber room.
Yeah.
But Rex is back and he sees Ahsoka, and it's like, a friendship like they had just doesn't end. They were so happy to see each other, and I think she knew that he had never meant any harm to the Jedi.
All right, so I look forward. I guess me, you, your nephew. I think everyone is looking forward to what Rex does next.
Yeah, I'm really hoping he becomes a part of the rebellion. I hope he gets if they're going to kill him off, I want him to have a hero's death, or retire again gracefully, because he is aging at 3 times the normal rate. So we don't know, what his lifespan is. But he's the oldest clone we've seen so far. Right.
Also at the beginning of the first episode, the command ship, I forgot to mention, was destroyed. So
yeah,
the stakes are being raised. So okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and end this one. Unless you have any final thoughts.
No, I think we talked about everything. There's a couple A New Hope moments, like when Rex said "Great shot, kid" to Ezra, that I was just like really excited about. But you know me.
Right.
It's like, oh, they said the thing.
Yeah. All right. So, where can people find us, Nikki, if they want to know what we're doing?
On Twitter, you can find us at radiofreeendor, and Jonathan at JEBell49er, and me at iHeartColson. We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/radiofreeendor. And shoot us a message, send us your thoughts, give us some ideas, like stuff you want us to talk about on the show.
Yep, and you can email us radiofreeendor@gmail.com. And of course, as I announced last episode, we're doing the audition thing to see, if you want to join the Radio Free Indoor team, or the Radio Ramen team, or the Big Picture Radio team. Just send in your auditions of you and a partner, or just you. We already got one fantastic submission.
Awesome.
From the UK.
That's awesome.
So we're looking forward to him joining. I'm sure, unless we get like some, I don't know. No, he's definitely in. So yeah, in some capacity he's in, because I definitely want to grow our little, into like a mini network, because as I've said before, I believe that I'm stepping down to more of an advisor role, and whatever the future is, there's going to be a lot of changes. There's we just had like a huge post on the private Certificate Media Group page, and so yeah, leave us a review on iTunes. So that's all. We're definitely going to do a Radio Free Indoor episode. Before we do the next RebelsCast. The next RebelsCast will more than likely be a double episode again, because I really want to talk about the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it about 8 times today, just because there's a scene I'm trying to figure out, like desperately trying to figure out. So it'd be cool to, share thoughts and stuff on that.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get someone on, someone who has been trying to get on for a while. So
okay, awesome.
Because I think it's a lot more fun. We had a great time last time, but I think it'd be more fun, especially since there's so much more to talk about in this one.
Oh, I know. Yeah, totally.
So. Okay, so for Radio Free Indoor and the Southgate Media Group, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Nikki.
And thanks for listening.